abortion, as I was saying, was not only abortion was commonplace in the United States of America, but not only was it commonplace in the United States of America, Benjamin, Germans are too swarthy to be considered white, Franklin, literally wrote instructions on at-home abortions in a book in the 1700s. This motherfucker, he wrote a cookbook for how to do abortions. That was God trying to stop you? Yeah, God tried to abort my fucking stream and it didn't work. That's right, folks. And I had no idea. This is totally new for me, okay? Maybe some of you guys knew this, but I went down this rabbit hole last night. And I can't find this. I can't find the original liberal guy who fucking posted about this shit, because some lib on Twitter was like actually looking at newspapers, like newspaper clippings from like the 1700s, to see whether there was like any basis, to see whether like Americans knew about abortion, talked about abortion at all, mentioned abortion at all. Turns out they did. No, this is not the NPR thing. There are actually newspaper clippings from like even before the founding of the United States of America, okay? During the time of the colonies, where people were talking about abortion, they understood it as a concept, they understood it as a medical procedure, and it was actually conducted by midwives and herbalists. So specialists for the time, you know what I mean? Like a time before fucking doctors. Now, of course, part of the reason why Benny Boy was probably a big aborabo advocate was because he did love having sex with the French. Okay? Oh, this is it. Here we go. And now, but that's besides the point. You know, you take what you can in that situation. Okay? Benny Boy loved wearing the fucking the raccoon on his head, making it seem like that's all Americans wear to the French, and having sexual intercourse with the French. That's part of the reason why he also famously thought the French were considered white alongside the Anglos, whereas the Germans weren't, because they were swarthy barbarians, and the Swedish were swarthy barbarians. Anyway. Yeah, he was fucking. Benny Boy was fucking. All right? He was. An actual good video from Sam B on federal land abortions in states. Abortions on federal lands. Okay, we'll potentially watch a Samantha Bee subject. We'll potentially watch a Samantha Bee video, but let me finish this real quick. And we'll talk about the Federalist Society as well. This is something that I've like covered regularly. So the idea that like our founders did not protect abortion rights or did not consider abortion or did not know about abortion back in the day is completely a falsehood. It quite literally relies on you not knowing this fundamental truth. The court claims the right to abortion is not deeply rooted in this nation's history and tradition. Is that true? I searched 18th century newspapers because I wanted to learn how people really felt about abortion at America's founding. Answer: they loved abortion. Now I'm going to just use the first half of this thread because I think it like falls off a cliff and like he starts talking about crazy stuff. But how much would you guess that people in the 1770s used the word abortion? I guess 0. I was wrong. They talked about abortion all the time in America. They talked about both literal abortion and abortion as a metaphor. Now, in 1752, a man had some too familiar conversations with a milkmaid. Some dude piped up a milkmaid. They needed some abortion herbs. Because he wanted to keep this quiet from his wife, he didn't trust the midwife. He got the herbs from 2 idle fellows of the town instead. Sadly, the herbs were arsenic and the milkmaid died. The man was charged with poisoning her, as were the sketchy herb salesman. But no one was charged with the crime of abortion. Why? Because it was perfectly legal and common. Abortion was only reported on when it went wrong. Most mentions of abortion from the period are metaphor. It was a shockingly common comparison. In 1774, a political critique. Unless our ministry are such skillful midwives as to procure an abortion, we shall be surprised with something monstrous. Implying that skillful midwives were administering abortions regularly. like as though this was something that you needed to have skill to conduct. Now remember, they don't have fucking doctors at this point so obviously like a lot of this is just like herbalists, a lot of this is like bullshit, right? But recognize that this was considered to be a fucking straight up medical practice. It was also something that people understood within the culture, so much so that they would use it as a comparison, as an analogy. From this, we learned that abortion was skilled work done by midwives, intentional, seen as good, protection from monstrous births. Now, the monstrous birth component, as John Skills Skinner mentions, is literally a reference to medieval Christian belief that some babies are hell-sent monsters needing to be aborted. That was part of the reason why, there was they were pro-abortion, because they were like, let me make something clear to you. There's some godless fucking demon babies out there. And to be honest, medieval Christians were right. There are some fucking demon-ass babies out there, okay? Hitler, thank you. There you go, okay? Think about that. Ted Cruz. Bro, we don't care. Kyrie going to the Lakers. That's so funny. Now, then they go into abortion was a common metaphor for America herself. Okay, yeah, that's when it falls off a cliff. I don't really care about that part of the argument, but it was commonplace, and people did talk about abortions, and I think that sets the mood for people understanding why someone like Benjamin motherfucking Franklin quite literally wrote about how to conduct at-home abortions, and wrote it in a popular British math textbook. Okay? Titled The Instructor and written by George Fisher, which Farrell said was a pseudonym, the textbook was a catch-all manual that included plenty of useful information for the average person. It had the alphabet, basic arithmetic, recipes in farriery, which is hoof care for horses. At the time, books were very expensive, and a general manual like this one was a practical choice for many families. Franklin saw the value of this book and decided to create an updated version for residents of the U.S., telling readers his goal was to make the text more immediately useful to Americans. These included updating city names, adding colonial history, and other minor tweaks. But as Farrell describes, the most significant change in the book was swapping out a section that included a medical textbook from London with a Virginia medical handbook from 1734 called Every Man His Own Doctor, the Poor Planter's Physician. This medical handbook provided home remedies for a variety of ailments, allowing people to handle their more minor illnesses at home, like a fever or gout, if you're rich of the soul, but also fatty, rich liver, which creates gout. The rich man's disease. One entry, however, was for the suppression of the courses, which Farrell discovered meant a missed menstrual period. The book starts to prescribe basically all of the best-known herbal abortifacients and contraceptives that were circulating at the time, Farrell said. It's just sort of a greatest hits of what 18th century herbalists would have given a woman who wanted to end a pregnancy early. Now, you might joke about every man his own doctor, but we're talking about the 18th century, boys. And yes, every man was their own fucking doctor. There was no established medicine, okay? I can't say that word ever. It's very explicit, very detailed, and also very accurate for the times in terms of what was known for how to end a pregnancy pretty early on. Including this information in a widely circulated guide for everyday life bears a significance to today's heated debate over access to abortion and contraception in the United States, in particular the leaked Supreme Court opinion that would overturn Roe v. Wade and states that a right to abortion is not deeply rooted in the nation's history and traditions. That is fucking false. Of course, a lot of this stuff is fucking false. Their understanding of protecting the safety and security and sanctity of human beings, no matter what their background is also fucking false. Obviously, the Supreme Court is a failed institution that is purely political, that tries to justify their reactionary politics, specifically the six reactionary Supreme Court justices, with an pseudo-intellectual patina, which is also known as, the originalist interpretation of the Constitution. But understand that even the fucking originalist interpretation of the Constitution and the reasons why they said, oh, well, abortion was not fundamental in the development of America is just wrong. Is just an abject failure of truly understanding the historical precedent or rather how commonplace abortion was. But that, in and of itself, is yet another perfect example that these guys don't actually care about any of the values that they espouse. They just care about getting shit done. They just care about pushing their reactionary agenda. And that can be seen also in the decision that they came down with earlier today, where they talked about allowing religious prayer to be conducted by a public school administrator at a public school during public school time.